the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
That's what Attorney General Pam Bondi said last week. She is currently reviewing the Epstein files at the directive of the president. They're on her desk, and she fully intends on making them public. However, fast forward to today, and the Epstein files still, conspicuously, have not been released. And with each passing day, suspicion continues to grow among conservatives who are beginning to imply that they suspect that she might be tampering with the list before it's released to protect some powerful people that she doesn't want named, or maybe she just won't release it altogether. This is all speculation. People are growing anxious. Now, they can't quite figure out why she hasn't released the list yet. For example, a prominent conservative on Twitter named Gunther Eagleman asked, "Hey Pam Bondi, I know you are likely busy with day-to-day responsibilities within the DOJ, but the American people deserve to see who's on the Epstein client list. What's the holdup? Is someone keeping you from releasing the unredacted versions?" Hours later, he followed up saying, "Looking forward to seeing the list, but I want people arrested and jailed for being on it." Hours after that, after still not getting a response, he tweeted, "You know, anytime now on the Epstein list. Trump promised the release of it. What's going on, Pam Bondi? We demand answers." Others started to say the same thing. For example, MAGA Voice on Twitter, a fairly prominent conservative account, called for them to be released multiple times, getting lots of retweets for that, and later said that they should be unredacted as well. Cat Turd 2 chimed in as well, saying that the pedos associated with Epstein have been protected long enough, saying release the list already. Laura Loomer also echoed that call, saying still no Epstein list. If it's on the desk, what's taking so long? We don't need any more Fox News one-liners. Release the list if the list is on the desk. Now, I never thought that I would say this, so please don't take this out of context in the future. I actually agree with Laura Loomer for once. This is pretty suspicious. It almost feels like Pam Bondi is taking her time specifically to protect one person. Perhaps a person whose name she didn't expect to find on Epstein's list and whose name she doesn't want to release to the public. I wonder who that might be. Thinking hard about that. Now, this isn't just some fringe request being made by right-wing influencers on Twitter, because Republican lawmakers have even started to ask the same question. For example, Representative Anna Paulina Luna writes, on February 11th and 19th, House Oversight sent a letter to the DOJ asking for status on releasing the Epstein files, as well as JFK, etc. The DOJ has not responded, reaching out on X because we can't seem to get a response from the AG. Pam Bondi, what is the status of the documents? These documents were ordered to be declassified. Additionally, Republican Congressman Tim Burchett says, where are the Epstein files, Pam Bondi? Republican Mike Collins says, release the Epstein files. Senator Mike Lee responded to that saying, this information belongs to the American people. It's about damn time they be given access to it. Now, I don't think that it's unreasonable for these Republican lawmakers to ask for the release of the Epstein files to be expedited, since Pam Bondi herself criticized Merrick Garland for rolling out the documents too slowly before she became AG.
I want to know why AG Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. You know, they're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out.
And she wasn't wrong when she said that months ago, but now that she's in a position to release the unredacted files, all of a sudden, she's the one who's dragging her feet, and people are noticing. But she's not the only one who's currently feeling the heat, because Senator Marsha Blackburn tweeted at Kash Patel saying, for years, my efforts to crack the Epstein trafficking ring wide open have been stonewalled by Democrats at every turn. This will change under FBI Director Kash Patel. I just sent him a letter asking for the complete and unredacted Epstein files. The time for transparency is now. No word yet at the time that I record this video on whether or not he's going to give those to her, but the request for unredacted files specifically might be the real holdup here, given the likelihood that there's one name in particular that they just don't want us to see. You know, if we get anything, it's probably going to be censored or heavily edited, hence why Pam Bondi said she's taking the time to review them as opposed to just releasing them as they are, because she wants to make sure that we only see what she wants us to see. But she's not the only Republican who people are looking at with side eyes because closeted homosexual conservative influencer Benny Johnson is alleging that FBI whistleblower claims that the FBI is actively destroying evidence after the Cash Bongino takeover. Quote, the FBI is working day and night to destroy files on these servers. Can't be restored. I'm sure there's info about Epstein and subversion against Americans. Now, I don't necessarily know if Benny Johnson himself actually broke this story because the FBI whistleblower reportedly also gave this information to Michael Schellenberger, but Benny Johnson did get the most hits for this. This is a viral video online that's going around. But having said that, he's not a journalist. I feel like that goes without saying. Therefore, he's not qualified to vet the claims that this whistleblower is making, even if he had any interest in doing that. But the allegation here conveniently does not implicate Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Rather, it implicates some deep state plans within the FBI who are acting against Bongino and Patel, who are trying to stop them from uncovering the truth. But on the other hand, if the current Attorney General, Pam Bondi, already said that she has the files on her desk, that suggests that the Epstein files couldn't possibly be affected by some deep state purge by bureaucrats who are trying to stop Kash Patel and Dan Bongino from getting to the bottom of this. Because, if they deleted it, then she wouldn't have it. And that's part of the claim. Like, the video itself is very long and superfluous, but one of the claims is that this information can never be restored, even by somebody who's a genius like Elon Musk. That's not what they said, but that's basically the crux of it. So, if that were true with regard to these files specifically, then Pam Bondi wouldn't have it, but she does. So, unfortunately, it seems like the real problem here is actually going to be the cause of some cognitive dissonance for Republicans when I say it, because I suspect that it's probably a lot less complicated than they're making it out to be. So just hear me out, Republicans, if you're still with me. What if Pam Bondi is taking her sweet time to release the Epstein files because she's trying to remove mentions of Donald Trump? Shocking, I know. But for some reason, this is something that none of them can fathom, which is weird to me. And one thing that still stands out to me is how delusional these people are. After Trump was convicted on all 34 felonies last year, Trump supporters were literally coping with tweets like this. They convicted Trump before convicting a single client of Epstein. Let that sink in. Which is an amazing thing to say because Trump almost certainly was a client of Epstein, you dense motherfucker. But they refused to accept even the possibility that a man who was found liable for sexual assault in civil court, who was accused of sexual misconduct by more than 24 women, who admitted on tape that he sexually assaults women, who was once one of Epstein's closest friends, according to him and Epstein, might possibly be implicated in the Epstein files. That possibility just hasn't occurred to them, apparently. And they haven't thought about whether or not that might be holding up the release of the Epstein files because they're hacks. They think that Epstein's link to Democrats like Bill Clinton and Alan Dershowitz, those are suspicious. Whereas Epstein's link to Donald Trump, it's merely coincidental. Just listen to Pam Bondi's rationalization of Trump's ties to Epstein before she was AG.
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He traveled internationally with Jeffrey Epstein, and he was on the plane called the Lolita Express because it supposedly had a bed in there where Jeffrey Epstein had young girls. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who hasn't spoken to him in many years, over a decade, after he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for bad behavior.
But Pam, what exactly is this bad behavior you speak of? And was Trump maybe alluding to it when he said this? Quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy, Trump told New York Magazine that year for a story headlined, Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. So that's kind of weird. In other words, Trump, at a minimum, knew something nobody else did about Jeffrey Epstein. The question is, why did he just kick him out of Mar-a-Lago? Why didn't he report Epstein to federal authorities? Because it seemed as if, by his own admission, he knew that something was going on there with his affinity for younger women. At best, Trump was covering for his rich buddies, which included Bill Clinton, by the way, who was one of his golfing buddies. But at worst, Trump himself could have been engaged in said bad behavior and only distanced himself from Epstein to save his own ass. But they refused to even entertain insane that this is a possibility despite all of the evidence tying Donald Trump to Epstein. I mean, even though Jeffrey Epstein said this, they still don't think Trump is suspicious.
So how do you know this?
Now, I know that they've heard that. It's just that, they don't care and it goes in one ear and out the other. But in addition to that, Trump was also presumably close to Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, seeing that he wished her well and volunteered some additional information that seems pretty relevant.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.
That's weird. See, maybe I'm alone here, but I personally don't wish notorious sex traffickers well. In fact, I wish them the absolute worst, and I hope that she experiences the same level of pain and suffering that she inflicted on all of her victims. But what's even more suspicious is the way that Trump responds to questions whenever Epstein is brought up. All of a sudden, the guy who never shuts the fuck up doesn't have much to say and suddenly tries to change the subject.
Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely?
I don't know. I will say that, he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
He said he killed himself and that they were going to do this investigation. They never did the investigation. It's never been public.
Well,
and they hid it. And why are they doing that? And clearly Barr knew. But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
Bill Barr didn't do an investigation on the election fraud either, okay? He said he did, and he pretended he did, but he didn't. But he didn't do the job there. I don't know what he did with Epstein, but possibly he didn't.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but there are those people. There are many people. I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and a case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it.
Listen, I'm no body language expert, but it was evident that he was very uncomfortable there. But before the 2024 election, after that interview, he was asked about declassifying files regarding 9/11, JFK, and whatnot. But look at how his enthusiasm suddenly changed when he was asked about Jeffrey Epstein files.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
Is there now phony stuff like maybe your name popping up? Is this you getting ahead of it so your supporters think that the files are phony if they see your name? I don't know. It's just a bizarre thing to say, right? It's obvious that for some reason, he's hesitant about releasing the Epstein files and always was. And when he was asked about said hesitation on Lex Friedman's podcast, his answer was very, very interesting.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Whoa, calm down there, Don. Nobody's accusing you of anything. He's simply asking why that seems like such a sore subject for you. But I do find it interesting, that's the word we'll use, interesting, that your first instinct when Epstein was brought up was to defend your innocence. That's definitely something that I think an innocent person would do for sure. But I mean, I'm sure that everybody watching that believes you, because after all, it's not like you've ever lied about anything, right? You're a very honest person. But nonetheless, he continues to talk in this interview and he says so much more. And it honestly gets sad albeit in a hilarious way. Just watch.
Why do you think so many smart, powerful people allowed him to get so close?
He was a good salesman. He was, was a hale and hearty type of guy. He had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. They do that for danger, too, because, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
That's great to hear.
Good idea, sir. Throw RFK Jr.'s ass right under that fucking bus, so that way we're talking about his association with Epstein and not yours. That's brilliant, honestly. Brilliant. But I mean, on a serious note, Trump's association with Epstein, as suspicious as it may be, isn't definitive proof that he is implicated in any of Epstein's crimes. That being said, I do think that there is enough there to warrant an investigation at a minimum, because as the Palm Beach Post points out, Trump flew on Epstein's plane 8 times between 1993 and 1997, and Bill Clinton was on board 17 times between 2002 and 2003, and Snopes confirms that this photo of Bill Clinton getting a massage from 22-year-old Epstein accuser Shantae Davies is indeed real. Now, again, to be fair, none of this is sufficient evidence of crimes. But given their proximity to Epstein and given the amount of power they have and the fact that they're public figures who have influence over politics, I do think that it's reasonable for us to ask for an independent, nonpartisan entity to look into whether or not there's anything there, right? Are they directly or indirectly implicated with crimes? We don't know. But I think that we need some closure on this issue because there's a lot there and it stinks, right? Now, to state the obvious, Trump's reluctance up until this point does make it seem like he has something to hide, which is all the more reason why I think that the Epstein files should be made public, and of course they should be made public in their entirety, not redacted. Now, in the event, evidence suggests that Donald Trump and any other powerful person, including Democrats like Bill Clinton, were complicit. I think that they should all be tried and they should all be convicted and they should all be imprisoned. Trump and Bill Clinton can share a cell as far as I'm concerned, but I mean, part of the problem is that I'm willing to be consistent and say both Democrats and Republicans implicated with Epstein's crimes should be held accountable, whereas the same can't be said for Trump sycophants who want the Epstein files to be released only insofar as they have damning evidence on Democrats and not Republicans like Donald Trump. I mean, ask yourself, how would these Republicans who are demanding that the Epstein files be released right now respond if they came out and there was definitive proof that Trump was culpable? We already kind of have an idea as to how they'd react to that, since they reject all the other non-Epstein related allegations against Donald Trump. I mean, they don't believe that he raped E. Jean Carroll. They seemingly don't believe any of the 26 women who accused him of crimes ranging from sexual harassment to rape. So we all know how they'd react if we did get evidence that he was guilty, like his buddy Epstein. They would call it fake news and accuse the deep state of tampering with the documents or cooking up bullshit to implicate him when it's not actually true, or they just believe whatever bullshit excuse Donald Trump himself gives them. Because there's not going to be anything, no amount of evidence that would snap them out of the false reality that they've constructed for themselves. So that's why I actually find it pretty strange that Trump is so awkward whenever Epstein is brought up. Sure, he might be culpable in some way. This is conjecture, but even if he is, he's learned over the past few years that he can do anything and get away with it. Anything he does is never going to amount to him being held accountable. He tried to overthrow the last election and was convicted of 34 felonies. So of course, if he did commit even more crimes of the Epstein nature, he's not going to be punished for it. He's untouchable. And moreover, his base is never going to leave him no matter what, even if they say they want the people associated with Epstein who were guilty to be put in prison, because we know that they don't think that applies to Trump. And even if it did, they would find some way to do mental gymnastics to make him innocent in their minds, right? Because again, they gobble up whatever bullshit he sells them. They're already buying the story about him kicking Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for bad behavior, which doesn't make him look good. And Pam Bondi is not the only person to parrot that shitty excuse. Last year, Marjorie Greene called the accusation against Donald Trump and Epstein fake, saying that him kicking Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago was proof that he had nothing to hide. As if him discovering evidence of sex trafficking but not reporting it makes him look good. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. But I mean, this is the type of people that we're dealing with. And fortunately for Donald Trump, it doesn't really matter if the Epstein files are never released or if they are and he's implicated, because his cult will find some way to deflect or pin blame on somebody else. And it's too early to tell if they're going to blame the deep state or Pam Bondi for that. But regardless, we know for damn sure it's not going to be Donald Trump, which is sad because it demonstrates that these people don't actually give a shit about holding powerful people accountable. And they certainly couldn't care less about justice for any of Epstein's victims. But guess what? I do, which is why I think that we should release the files and hold every pervert involved accountable regardless of their party affiliation. But I don't think that Trump supporters would make that same exact request. In fact, if the Epstein files are never released, they're not going to blame Donald Trump or suspect that maybe he doesn't want them released because he's implicated. They're just going to blame Pam Bondi or the deep state or somebody else because that's how they operate. We can never get consistency for them, and whatever cause they purport to care about, there's always some ulterior motive behind it. It's not because they care about justice, it's because they care about owning somebody who they don't like. So that's what this is about. But look, I genuinely hope that I'm proven wrong, and I hope that they are released, and I hope we see the unredacted version because the people who are involved do need to be held accountable.